Welcome to the show. This is Tommy's Outdoors, episode 16. And our guest today is Tomás Mac, young man in his 20s who cycled solo and unsupported through the United States. But this year, he is planning to cycle also solo and unsupported through the length of Africa. This is super impressive stuff, and he's an incredible and super impressive young man. So I don't want to spend any unnecessary time on that intro, and we're going to jump right into it. Hello, everybody. With me today, quite exceptional young man. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good now. Good. It's warm, so
yeah, it's very warm. Actually, for all you people who are listening to this, we're sitting in our recording room, and it's like super hot, and we close the door so we have a good recording conditions. And it's super hot. There's no air conditioning here, so like a sweat is dripping up of my back, and probably Tom got up in the same position shortly. But hey, we try to deliver the best content, and that's what we do, right? Tom, my friend, you're doing some amazing stuff, and we get to that in a second, right? We had like episode 14 was about adventure, and I mean like. What you're doing is like in a different level. That's a proper adventure. Maybe just before we go into it, just introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, my name is Tomás Mac. I'm a 22-year-old, and I live in Ballyferter, just maybe 35 miles west of Tralee. So I just work in my family pub, and I'm also a cycling tour guide, and yeah, I sometimes just like to tear away off on some cool adventures. So
yeah, we'll get to that. Have you heard of a Wild Adventure Way? You're a tour guide, so maybe that's something like that's episode 14 about adventures. So I think that's a kind of like a hub where all the guides for all this stuff like that put their offer and can do so check that out. And
I'll have to check that out.
That may be something interesting.
Thanks.
But anyway, we are here, so you're a cyclist, and obviously you're quite passionate about cycling. Is it started from a young age, or?
Yeah, I remember cycling as a kid with my dad and brother and sister, but I didn't really enjoy it. And just outside of Ballyferter village, there's a small, tiny little hill. And I remember cycling to that hill, and then I was too scared to go down. And it was only like 20-30 meters. I was just too scared to go down. So, and then I did a bit of cycling with friends and stuff, but that was only to the beach and whatnot else. It wasn't anything, it was only small, tiny little things. And then I packed it in then, and I was playing football and soccer and things like that until I got to about 17. And as a way to keep fit, I was kind of falling in and out of love with football. And then just as a way to keep fit, I started running and cycling. And I definitely like the cycling a lot more than running, than I still do today. And then one day my dad was watching the Tour de France on TV, and I was like, oh, hey, look, those bikes look cool. So I was just like, I was like, will we go get one? So we came into Tralee and went down to Halloran's, and that's where I bought my first racer bike when I was 17 years old.
Right. And have you been racing then, like in the racing club and just competitive cycling, I suppose? Yeah,
no, I don't race, not yet anyways. My local cycling club, Dingle Cycling Club, we're definitely more of a leisure club. Mm-hmm. You just meet up at weekends, or now that the summer's back and the evenings are getting longer, we do a weekly spin as well. But no, I've participated in one race, the race around Ireland. Oh, but that was just with friends and things like that, and
so more leisurely kind of.
We did race it. I mean, we raced it hard because it did get competitive, and we began to really kind of settle in and enjoy the competitive side of it. So we were chasing my Nulty, a team from Meath up the Wicklow Mountains, and
awesome!
Yeah, we nearly caught them, but I think they beat us by about 5 kilometers. So
all right, almost a draw.
yeah. So yeah, that's the only race I've competed in. Apart from that, I've done just leisure cycling and the stuff like the Runa Kerry, and then I kind of brought it up another notch, and I went off and did a solo cycle across the United States of America about maybe a year and a half ago in late 2016.
Ta-da! And this is it, ladies and gentlemen. Cycle across America. It's like a cannonball run, right? It's a cannonball run across the continent. Right. I mean, like, let's get right into that. And so, first of all, that happened a few months ago. Well, not a few months ago, like 2016.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 years ago.
Yeah, about a year and 3/4 now.
Right. Are you like sick of talking about it? Because I presume you talked about it like many times already. So
well, now it's just in our family pub. I've kind of a poster made up of some pictures and of things like that from that trip. So you get lots of Americans who are in the pub who kind of recognize a few places I passed through if they're from that area. So you talk to them about it, and they love hearing about it, and how great the American people were to me, and how well, I don't know if I got lucky or not, but I had no trouble over there. I was well looked after, and it was an epic trip.
Oh, cool. So listen, let's get right into it. How did it start? How the idea started? It's not your average cyclist idea to cycle across America.
No, of course not. So I went away and did 3 years in college up in NUIG in Galway, and I eventually graduated, and I said to myself, well, I'm definitely taking a year out because I just couldn't face into a master's straight after doing that 3 years, and on top of having done the Leaving Cert then as well. So I just wanted a break from education and books and things like that. So I said, okay, well, if I'm going to take a year out, then I have to do something definitely worthwhile. I can't just sit around at home and mope around the house and deny my parents even more than I do. So I started just looking at a map, and I was like, okay, well, where can I go? And I obviously, with Ireland being so kind of depressing in the winter time with the weather, especially for cycling as well, it's great to be sitting inside looking out the window, but when you're trying to go out and brave the elements on a bike, it can get tough. So.
It's pure dangerous sometimes, because with the wind you can just get blown under the car or something.
Yeah, especially around Slayhead, it gets very windy around Slayhead. So there's been times where I've been blown off the bike. So I said I wanted to go abroad someplace, but someplace nice where I probably haven't been before and have some nice bit of weather. So Europe was off the cards because it gets too cold and snowy, and then I didn't want to go to Asia or Africa or Australia at that stage. So I saw the United States of America, and
it's like a safest bet.
Yeah, it just appealed because I'd never been there. My brother had just returned. He'd spent 3 months in Scottsdale and Phoenix in Arizona. A lot of my friends have been there, family have been there. I mean, so many Irish people still go there on holidays, or else
it's a big Irish culture and tradition in the United States.
I mean, ever since the famine, since the immigration started, America was the forefront where we went to. So I wanted to go over there and just experience it for myself. And I said, well, okay, I could just travel there normally and just kind of bus and fly and car everywhere. But I was like, well, I love cycling, so why not just combine them both, and why not just cycle across the whole country?
This is just awesome. This is just awesome. And look, how like, if I think about it, the biggest thing would be, what about stops? What about, like, have you had like a touring bike with all the pennies, and or how would you plan, like a stopovers and where to take a shower and, all that?
Well, the planning I didn't do too much of. I decided to definitely go. I had been thinking about it for a while as I was nearing the end of my college term, but it was only sort of maybe late July, beginning of August before I kind of settled and said that I was going to do it. So straight away, I just booked my flights. Because I said, if I book my flights, I'm definitely going with or without a bicycle. So I booked my flights to the States, and then I booked my flights, my return flights straight away as well, so that I'd spend a minimum of, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks, the gap I had between my two flights. So yeah, I didn't do too much planning. I just bought maps of the route, so I picked the.
So you already been committed to the time in which you have to do it, because you already booked your return flight.
Yeah, I don't know why I booked my return. In hindsight, I shouldn't have, because I actually ended up missing my return flight, and I unfortunately lost that money and had to go get another flight. But I don't know, somebody in the bar was telling me that to go there you have to have a return flight booked if you're on a holiday visa so that they know you're leaving. But anyways, it
that's
worked
quite
out fine.
that's quite possible.
Yeah, I didn't read too much into it. I just kind of took your man's word for granted, and I went ahead and booked my return flight. But it still worked out fine. I missed it by about a week, that was all. So it was just bad weather in Mississippi when I was cycling through there that kind of slowed me down.
How cool does this sound, right? I missed the flight when I was because the weather was bad weather in Mississippi when I was cycling. That just sounds cool. Like,
I tried to get onto the airline to see if they just kind of give back my money, but I got some. I know it was at VAT, or they gave me back about €30 maybe. So
30 euros.
Yeah, but it was fine. I had a few drinks on that €30. So and that was a cheers to what airline was it? Wow Air, the Icelandic one. So I had a couple of drinks on them.
Very good, very good. Okay, so you decided that I'm going, and then once you had a ticket, you kind of started thinking like, okay, I'm gonna get this bike and cycle. Like, how that work?
So what I did first was I just bought my maps. I bought that to be sent to me, so I bought the maps. I had like the whole route planned. Well, not that I had a plan now, but there's an American website called the Athletic Cycling Association, and they just plan routes all over the States.
Yeah.
So I picked the southern tier because it was 3,000 miles, and I thought that was 7 weeks I had. I thought that was plenty of time to cycle the 3,000 miles and get to my return flight. So I basically just booked my flights, got my maps, bought some cycling gear. I bought 2 good pairs of shorts and a few other bits and bobs. And then I didn't buy my bike until I got to San Diego, but I had been in contact with the bike shop who were happy to have the bike set up for me.
Okay.
So
so you haven't actually been flying with the bike?
No, I never used the bike. Didn't even bring my own saddle because a lot of people are picky about that they say you have to bring your own saddle, and I was like, no, just whatever comes with the bike I'll just use, because
it seems like you're kind of easygoing person. You didn't. I think that even if I think myself, but I know a lot of people who do the massive planning. I would certainly do like a massive planning, and you seem to just take it as it was going. Like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna book the flights, and I'm just gonna get the bike there, which is kind of cool. That's that made it easier for you.
It did, yeah. It's just force of habit, because my plans never really seemed to work. So I said, well, this time I'll just go without a plan and just take it day by day and just basically see what happens, because I just think that it'll all work out itself.
Yeah,
I could have had every day planned from day 1 to day 36 or day 42 or whatever it would have taken. And then maybe after a few days, you could see that the plan wasn't going to work out. And how do you deal with that then? If you had things arranged, like people to see, places to stay, things booked in advance. Like, luckily enough, I only had my flight home booked. So I kind of knew after about the halfway mark that I wasn't going to make it. So I was just like, okay, well, I can't just dwell on it and be upset, that I'm missing my flight home. I'll just go away and book another one and just continue on. Yeah. So I know some people, like to have everything planned to a T and have everything set and done, but I'd be the opposite. I think just the less planning.
It worked. And
see what happens then, because things just happen as you go along, anyways.
Yeah.
So
listen. So I have so many questions that I don't even know where to start. So first, I suppose the first stuff is why did you bought the maps like a paper maps?
Yeah, they were paper maps, so they had like the route.
Why did you use like a GPS? Why did you apply it on GPS? Or have you done that too?
No, I've never done that. It was just I hadn't looked into using a GPS. There's probably a GPS on my Garmin, but it was just the maps were just most convenient and they were light. And I just knew that if I just kind of stuck to it, that I'd be okay. So on my bike, I had a handlebar bag with plastic and a clear plastic on top,
where you can stick the map.
Yeah, so I could just stick the map there and then just kind of look at it as I was cycling along, just to make sure I was on the right road. Because what they did was the southern tier route was broken down into 8 stages. So stage 1 was like San Diego to Phoenix, and then Phoenix to I think El Paso, and so on and so forth. So it would have every stage broken down, and basically it'll just tell you which road to bike on, and they got you off the main busy roads as well, which is nice. And then they had like emergency contact numbers, places to stay just in case. I think there's places to eat, so they were quite detailed. And then
there was a whole host of other information which you don't have if you just get the GPS map and just plan that. So that worked better. And is it not like a more difficult than use, where you like a map is? I don't know. Actually, that's the question. what piece of the road you can see at one time on the map. So is it not like a too big? Is that you can? It's difficult for identify where I am actually on that map.
At times it was. Sure, just being Irish, I mean, we get lost quite easily. So
I never heard that before.
there was times where I had to second out, and I think even leaving San Diego the first day, I had to ride through a national park, and I somehow ended up going in a circle, and I got back to where I'd started from, so I had to ride through it a second time. And it took me ages to get out of the city because city cycling is just a nightmare end of. So having got lost in the national park, that kind of set the tone for the first day. And then I ended up biking into the pitch dark, and that place I was supposed to stay that night, a friend of mine had arranged. It was out in the middle of nowhere, like in this valley. It was pitch dark. There was no light directions. My phone had just died. So it was just like, I have no idea where this guy is. It's too dark to keep cycling. And then like 15, 20 minutes later, this car pulls up beside me and says, I finally found you. So he actually ended up coming looking for me as well. So
I anticipated the stuff.
Yeah, that was day one. So I kind of knew after that this was going to be kind of just a very good unplanned trip.
Very good.
That you just have to kind of just take it as it was coming to you, and just kind of take it minute by minute, and just kind of just settle yourself into the excitement, and just not expect anything, and just whatever happened, just go along with it.
Great. Okay, so you mentioned the website that you used for planning the route. What was the name again of it?
I'm fairly certain it's the Athletic Cycling Association, ACA.
Right. And so obviously I know you're on Strava. I'm using Strava as well. Have you considered using Strava, or was it the same deal like with the maps? Like, okay, this is kind of generic tool, and it doesn't have all the extra information that website had.
I'd looked at it, but at the time, I suppose it's inexperience as well. Just the maps seemed the best thing to do. Yeah. But then with the maps took me on a very isolated 600-mile stretch from Del Rio in Texas down to El Paso,
right?
Kind of hugging the Mexican borderline. And by the time I got to, from El Paso to Del Rio. So, so by the time I got to Del Rio, I put the maps. I threw them into the bottom of my bag, and I never took them out again after that. So after that, I just took on advice from locals, and I just used Google Maps to go. I was only going east, so I knew that there was no way I could get lost. Once I was heading east.
Yeah, because the magnitude of your road was like that way.
It was literally just go east, and sooner or later I'd end up on Florida someplace. I mightn't be at my end destination, but at least I'd be close by.
Right. And you're right, and especially that Strava, I suppose they tracking the route based on how many tracks are uploaded there, not necessarily by what is the best track for whatever. That's awesome. Listen, man, so did you plan? No, I know that you didn't plan, but obviously you had some thoughts about like what's gonna happen, how are you gonna stay overnight? Did you have a tent with you, or was like, oh, I'm gonna just bang the door and try to find somebody who will.
I did that once. I knocked on the door, and I never again knocked. That was day 2, and I said never again am I knocking on the door, because I'll go back to the tent, but just really quick. I was in the Californian desert just east of San Diego, and it was the second day, and it just got really, really hot. It was like 35 degrees through a desert, and I've never cycled in a desert before. So
like most of us, I suppose, never cycled through the desert.
No desert in Ireland.
You're the guy who did it, right?
So eventually, anyways, typically I ran out of water, and again, I was just out in the middle of nowhere. There was no houses, nothing around me. So I struggled on for like another 10 miles with no water. And eventually I came to a cluster of houses. So I says, right, I'll just pick the closest house to the road, knock on the door, thinking it could be like Ireland, where they'll all just come out and, ask how you're getting on, and, and just chat away at you. But anyways, the house I knocked on, there was no answer. So I kind of just started walking around the side of the house to see if anybody was out back. And next thing, this big dog comes running at me and chases me. So I run back to my bike, and luckily enough, I knew that the best way to deal with dogs like this is to kind of shout at them and put the bike between you and the dog. Yeah. So I kind of took up a defensive position and put the bike between me and the dog. and I was shouting at the dog to like kind of just stop and whatever. And next thing, the lady of the house opened the door, and she greeted me with, if that dog catches you, it'll probably kill you because it'll just bite you. It was like a really defensive dog.
Right.
So that was the greeting, and then I just kind of explained to her how I was from Ireland and I was biking cross country and I ran out of water.
Right.
And is there any chance she could fill up my water bottles? So this lady, like, I kind of copped it at the time that half her body was out the door and the other half was inside.
Yeah.
So it later on turned out, I was talking to other Americans and they all said the same thing, that she had the gun behind the door just in case, because in the States apparently nobody knocks on doors unless they know you're coming. So if you go up to somebody's house unannounced, then just be prepared that those people in the house are going to get frightened because it never happens.
Right.
Whereas at home, I mean, we have a B&B. I mean, people come back into the B&B and they've walked into my bedroom.
It probably depends in what part in the United States, because you obviously when you're living in a dodgy area, then you're assuming that if someone knocks at your door and you're not expecting anybody, that's probably problems.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I know of people who are going looking for land access permission for hunting and whatnot, and they have this like a door banging method that they're going from door to door and asking for. So it probably also depends, because I mean, America is such a big country.
Yeah, of course. It's very diverse.
Right.
Maybe it's just the places that are kind of out isolated. I mean,
isolated places somewhere in the desert. Beware people. Beware of the dog.
The last thing that lady probably expected was to find some pale Irish person dying of the thirst in the middle of a desert looking for water. So
did she believe you at all? Did she fill your water bottles?
She did. Yeah. Well, her son came out and filled them. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I had my Irish top on, and with the pale skin, I think that was enough of a giveaway for her to believe that I was from Ireland. So to be far-fetched if I went out to the middle of the desert to make it up anyways. So.
Yeah.
But awesome. going back to the tent, so because it was my first proper touring trip and my first time being away by myself like that, I'd never kind of holiday by myself before that. I made a deal with mom and dad was that they'd let me do it if I just promised them that I'd stay with people as I was going along. So I just stayed with random people who took me in, friends of friends, again, going back to the Irish connection in America.
Right.
I stayed in hotels and motels. And then there's a website called Warm Showers, which is basically...
Warm Showers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's basically
there was recently some tweeting going on about warm showers. I think that... I don't recall now what was it. But I think there is a... Suzanne Bergman in Waterville. I think she's a part of that Warm Showers. I think it was her.
I think there's one or two down that there.
Yeah.
It's not too popular in Ireland just yet, but hopefully now with the big influx of touring cyclists.
Is it just starting that idea of warm showers, or is it like for years and ages and it's just coming to Ireland?
In the States, it definitely seemed years, because I mean there was places all over the country. Now some places hadn't been updated in years,
Sure.
There was some places that you could, because when you went on the Warm Showers website, each individual had their own profile. So you could see when they were last active, and some people were last active an hour ago, and other people were 5-6 years ago.
Sure.
So some people just obviously hadn't taken down their accommodation, which at times was quite frustrating, because when I went logged onto Warm Showers, I'd see a few houses around me and I'd be like, great, I can stay here. So then I kind of log off and continue cycling. It was only then when you kind of got closer to the town that you'd actually look properly, just to weigh them up when you had time to look at them, that maybe none of them were actually still in existence.
Sure.
So then you had to kind of revert back to plan B and just find a hotel or motel.
So there was a little bit of the planning, like you said. You have addresses, I presume, phone numbers of friends of friends, and so you had a rough idea where you're gonna be.
Yeah, in a few places. I mean, there was a lady in San Diego who actually stayed in our B&B.
Oh, okay.
So the previous summer. So I didn't know her personally. She knew my mom and dad. So I made contact with her, and I met up with her while I was in San Diego. Then I had a contact in Phoenix because my brother worked there. So I actually ended up staying in Phoenix 2 nights and went to Scottsdale to meet his old boss and his old work colleagues. And then the next place I had was Austin, Texas. and then the last place I had was in Florida when I finished. So maybe there's like 4 kind of pre-arranged contacts.
Sure.
And they were all kind of each quarter way.
Okay, so not doing that. How many days overall
it took 7 weeks, 42 days. So
42 days.
I spent 36 days cycling, and most of it was into headwind, which was again completely unplanned. Lack of planning. I kind of shot myself in the foot that time.
Yeah, because you could have known that it's the other way around. You're gonna
yeah. But I think it worked out better anyways because I booked the flights so soon, so close to each other. I kind of thought that I could do a good time. It was not that I wanted to race across, but still, do it in maybe 5 weeks or something was my target. And then because of the headwind, I realized that I was going to make that target. So then I was just like, okay, well, there's no point screaming and shouting into this headwind and trying to do 100 miles every day because literally my head was going to explode. Yeah. So I said, okay, just take it easy and just.
What was your average on a day?
I think it worked out at, I don't know, was it 75 or 80 miles towards the end? Between 70 and 80 miles, I think it averaged each day.
Right.
And then I had the
for 6 weeks.
For 6 weeks,
Jesus, man.
But into headwinds, so I'm still quite proud of that one.
I mean, like seriously, that's a serious achievement.
Yeah, because one of the days in Florida, the headwind. Oh man, it was like, I think it took me 2 hours to cycle 28 kilometers. I was like doing like 13, 14k an hour, and you're like somebody jogging beside you could jog just as fast. Like it was unbearable, really. So there was some tough days of headwind, but
what was the preparation? What preparation you've done? Training wise, have you tried these like a high volume workouts, or was it also?
I think I did 100 mile spin, and that was up to Limerick. I cycled from my house to Limerick for my girlfriend's birthday. And that was 100 miles, and that was the only 100 mile spin I did. I just spent I was tipping away doing 200-300 kilometers not every week, but like a good number of weeks. But I didn't do anything over. I definitely didn't overtrain. If anything, I definitely undertrained. But trips like this, you don't really need to train because, to be honest, anyone could do it if you put your mind to it. You just jump on a bike, and eventually, anyways, after the first week or two, you kind of use that as your training, and then it's because it's the rule.
The more you demand from your body, the more your body will give you. It's just
once your body gets accustomed to the uncomfortableness of it, because you're not going fast because you're way down, and then obviously the headwind slows you down too. But it's just getting used to the uncomfortableness, staying on your bike for 6-7 hours and barely touching 100 miles and barely touching 100 miles, carrying all the extra weight, and then just trying to get over the saddle sores, lower back pain, shoulder pain, just all these little niggling injuries. I mean, my Achilles got sore for a few days, so I was actually limping for a few days, and I could barely pedal with my left leg.
Oh God!
But just you just get on with it, and it's just once you can overcome the uncomfortableness, touring cycling is fine for you. It's just you're going to be uncomfortable. It isn't pretty. It isn't nice. You do get lovely photographs, but behind that photograph is a lot of pain to get there. There's a lot of pain.
Yeah, but that's why we're doing that. That's why you're doing that. That's great. Listen, and how you dealt with your clothes? Did you have you could just change spare clothes, and now you try to wash them while you were at people's house or somewhere in a hotel? Like how that worked out?
Yeah, so I think along the way I definitely became a better future house husband or whatever. So it was a lot of just clean. It was just repetition. If I was staying in a hotel motel, whatever gear I was wearing that day, I just fill a sink and whatever fairy liquid or soapy water or whatever I could get my hands on, just wash them out, leave them dry overnight. I usually just left the radiator on full blast, and I mean the rooms, it was hot in America. I mean some days it hit 38 degrees, and I was stuck in a room trying to dry my clothes, and in the evening of course when the sun was gone away, but yeah, I just leave the clothes in the radiator, and if they weren't dry by the next morning, then I just pick up a hairdryer and just sit there for an hour just trying to air blow the clothes dry. So
that all right. That's
it was just all self-sufficient. Now there was times when if I stayed at somebody's house that they would wash your clothes.
Right.
So that was I think it was like Austin, Texas, before I properly got like a good wash.
Right.
Of like my own clothes. So at times it can be quite kind of disgusting because you're just, I mean, the cycling gear I washed every night because I knew that putting on the same shorts the following day was just a major no-no. But t-shirts and stuff like that, you could get a few days use out of them before changing over.
Yeah.
And just lots of body spray.
Yeah. no. So I look at your route, and it was kind of on the south of United States. So the weather was warmer. Was that the part of the plan? Was that planned?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I kind of ruled out Europe, which probably would have made more sense as your first touring trip. But I knew the European weather in November it wasn't going to be great. So I was just like, okay, well, if I'm leaving Ireland, I'm going to some place where there's some chance of sun, not too hot, but just not cold either.
Sure.
So yeah, that southern tier route brought you down along the 8 southern states, like California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas. They were kind of the dry heat, as the Americans say.
Yeah.
California was warm. Arizona was the warmest. That got up to 38 degrees.
Sure.
New Mexico got chilly enough. It wasn't too bad, manageable. And then West Texas was very cold. There were some cold days, but it was like 55 Fahrenheit, which is probably like 10, 12 degrees.
Yeah.
But I kind of got accustomed to the 30, 35 degrees. So to drop down
to
10 again was just a bit of a shock in the body.
Right.
But then when I kind of got into Central and East Texas again, it really warmed up. And then from Louisiana onwards, it was just humidity it was warm, but then you had, instead of having the dry heat, you had the humidity.
Yeah.
And
it was tougher.
Yeah, I'd never experienced anything like it before. The humidity is definitely worse than the dry heat.
Yeah.
Definitely worse.
Yeah.
Because I remember one morning I was leaving I stayed in a hotel, and it was 7:30 in the morning, and outside it was misty, it was foggy, it just looked really cold.
Right.
So I kind of had on my extra gear, winter gear, walked outside the front door, and I had to go back in and change and strip back down to my shorts and my jersey, which was zipped open for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It was just, it wasn't nice. It was just the humidity. I think it was like 80-90% humidity that day.
Wow.
And you just sweat.
Sweating.
You just cannot drink enough water. And then I found with the heat that I had no real appetite to eat during the day.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of eating small little, just nibbling away in food. And then once I was finished my cycling, then in the evening, then I'd eat properly.
Sure. So you had a bag on your bike.
Yeah. So
other than the one on the handlebars that you mentioned.
So I had a handlebar bag which just had my essentials: the map, my phone, wallet, just spare food, all that kind of stuff. And then I had 2 rear panniers on the back wheel, and one on either side. And that just had spare cycling gear. I think I had one extra spare set of cycling gear, a pair of jeans, a pair of shorts, I think a t-shirt and a shirt, and then there's a spare pair of runners, and then I had my electronics like my GoPro, phone chargers, the maps that I eventually dumped to the bottom and never took out again. That was.
And
really
how you were handling the nutrition and your food and your like, have you also like I presume you didn't pack like 2 boxes of energy bars?
No, God, no. Luckily enough in America, it's like the food capital of the world. You can just eat what you want pretty much when you want. So if I was in the mood for pizza, I'd have pizza. You can get you can get burgers everywhere, basically anything you want to get your hands on. And then because it's so international, I was eating a lot of Mexican food up until Texas. That's what I pretty much survived on.
Right.
From California to Texas was just Mexican food, and I've just a very unhealthy obsession with fajitas. So anywhere I could, I was eating fajitas unless I was in the mood to kind of fatten myself up and just devour burgers and pizzas and everything else. But it was mostly Mexican food I was eating. And then breakfast was always, if I could find a place called IHOP, International House of Pancakes, I'd go there and I'd order a big plate of pancakes or crepes, toast, and I think it was scrambled egg as well, with a couple of cups of coffee. So
awesome. And listen, have you got any concerns over your gear, your bike being stolen or anything like that? Because I presume you're stopping at the burger house or whatever, you leave the bike outside. Have you got this is something that is freaking me out on the club spins here in Ireland, that we all stopping for the coffee stop, and there's like a tens of thousands worth of bikes in front of a coffee shop or pub, and people said, oh, maybe I'm gonna stay here and mind the bikes. No, it's fine, it's gonna be fine. And like it freaks me out. But apparently, like Ireland is still a very safe place in this, I probably wouldn't like to do that in Dublin, but was that in the US in your trip?
Yeah,
did you have locks on the bikes and all that?
No, I had no trouble. If I stopped, I usually stay beside my bike unless I went into like a cafe or something.
Okay.
But I'd try find a place where I could leave the bike right outside the window I was sitting at, so I could position myself.
Sure.
Now, obviously, if somebody came and took it, and if I was in the bathroom or something, then but sometimes if there was like sometimes in the American places, you walk into whatever restaurant, cafe, bar, whatever, there's usually somebody to greet you at the door and to sit you. Mm-hmm. So I usually just kind of say, look, while you're looking at people outside, just keep an eye on the bike and just like glance over it every couple of minutes or whatever. Sure. But I'd usually position myself
just to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, or else I'd bring it inside, because I did have my bags as well, and I obviously had all my essentials. But I didn't bring a lock. I'd no issue. The only thing I kind of got mugged off about was, and I don't know if it was taken off my bike or not, I had an Irish flag stuck inside one of my rear panniers, and that got a lot of attention because cars would pass you by, and with my Irish top and the flag, they'd recognize it and they'd beep or they'd pull in and talk to you. So I was cycling through, I think it was Phoenix in Arizona, and Phoenix now, width-wise, it's 100 miles. So from my house in Ballyferriter to Limerick, or probably from Tralee to, I don't know, have up the motorway up to Dublin. But yeah, when I stopped, I saw that my flag had snapped. So I don't know if somebody had snapped it off, because I did stop on the subway before that. Right. Or else if the wind just kind of snapped it off or whatever. I don't know what happened. I still don't know what happened to it. But yeah, that was the only time I was kind of like, oh. But if somebody did snap it off, at least they only took the flag and not the actual bike or the bag. So you probably got away with it. But no, I had no trouble. I had nobody I had to run after, or anybody trying to take the bike or anything like that. And plus, anyways, it was probably too heavy, because if they tried to cycle off, I mean, I had mountain bike cycling shoes, so these shoes you could actually walk in without looking like a penguin. So I could, if I had to, I could run after somebody, and I knew that with the way the bike was kind of, it wasn't like very heavy, but it was obviously a lot heavier than traditional road bikes. Of course,
but it's a steel bike.
Yeah. And so I knew that if they did try to cycle away, that it'll probably take them a good like 20 seconds to properly get going. And by then I'm pretty fast, so I could probably try catch him or shout at. And
did you purchase that bike? I didn't get you said. So it was your bike. I purchased. I thought it was maybe like a subcontracted for you to do the.
I bought it in San Diego, and I bought the bike and the bags and the whole lot. So
okay. Nice. And did you then take it with you? Or did you solve it?
It's actually at my mom's cousin's house in Florida.
Okay, it's still there.
It is.
In case you're gonna cycle other way around to have a.
That was the plan. Was I was going to go back. So the plan after. So I did this. The cycle went, and then I planned to go back to college. So and then the plan was to do like a 1 or 2 year masters, and then go back and reward myself by doing the northern tier, which was from Seattle, and I was going to finish up in Boston. So I left the bike there. But now I have a different trip planned, so I won't be going back to the States, not in the next year or two anyways. So I don't know now, will I just try ship? It's still over there. I mean, I just haven't, I kind of forgot about it really until it was bought up now. So
it's waiting there for you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I will go back and cycle.
So before we go, because we have a nice segue to your next trip, your next plan. But before we get there, like overall, was it like such a immense amount of adventures, and every day there's nothing that really sticks out, or is it like a 1 or 2 things that are still in your mind that will cool or terrifying or whatever? And we know about the dog story.
Well, on that same day, after that, I ran out of water again, so I started knocking on houses. I started flagging cars. So eventually one car stopped, And again, this is just down to good luck more than anything else. One car stopped, gave me some water. He drove off. I biked off. In the meantime, he'd obviously called his wife because he came speeding back down the road to me and told me that his wife told him to get a selfie with me. So we swapped pictures, swapped details, and that was it. I cycled off. And then that night, I got a message on Facebook, and it was his wife who messaged me saying, "Oh, you met my husband today in the desert. He wants to take you out on his plane tomorrow." So the following day, and I'd only planned on biking like 50 miles the following day because I had a big kind of 90-mile stretch through the desert upcoming. So I was like, I'll just bike 50 miles and just chill out in the next town and get myself ready. So the following day, then it just turned out that the guy took me on his plane. So I went away on a plane ride with them, and he took me over like the desert I was going cycling in the following day.
Right.
He took me to Salt, what is it? I think it's Salt River, Salt and Sea, sorry. So it's kind of a tourist attraction. And then there was another camp where, oh man, I can't think of the name of the camp now. Sorry, I can't think of the name of the camp, but it was basically a campsite for all these people who just wanted to be completely left alone and away from society.
Right.
So this place was just
like a Amish people.
Not
was
precisely.
Was it like a religious, or is it like
no, not religious?
Okay, so just the people who just want to get away from.
So they basically they pay like no tax. They have their own electricity. They're completely like self-sufficient.
Right, off the grid.
And
people.
Off the grid, yeah. And yeah, we flew over there. Oh man, no, I can't think of the name of it. So we flew over there as well, and then they took me out for food, and also paid for me to stay at a local hotel as well.
Oh, great.
So yeah, and then that was one instance. Another time I got taken to Mexico for a day trip. Oh, which was cool as well.
Right.
And then I got so we had a day out in Mexico. I got invited to 2 Thanksgiving dinners, which was nice. Right. And then it was just the hospitality of the people I met the rest of the way.
So very positive overall, very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then you flew back, and what was the story about Aer Lingus sponsoring your trip back?
So
some story going on Twitter.
Yeah, that worked out weirdly enough. So because I couldn't make my flight with WOW Air, I just cheekily tweeted Aer Lingus. And I think the tweet went along the lines of, 23 years old, cycling across America for the Donald Walsh Life Foundation. Any chance of a lift home for Christmas? It went something like that. And I thought nothing else of it. Because I tweeted like some of the rugby players or whatever to retweet what I was doing. And some did, some didn't. So I just tweeted Aer Lingus as kind of a cheeky tweet. Definitely didn't expect anything of it. All of a sudden then my phone just started beeping. All these people started retweeting it, and they were like tweeting Aer Lingus, and they were tweeting me, and they're like, "Oh, come on, Aer Lingus, get this kid home for Christmas. He's doing something very good." And so Aer Lingus anyways got in touch, and they unfortunately said no. So
shame on you, Aer Lingus.
Not at all. It was a good. It got the foundation a lot of attention, and a lot of donations came in around the same time.
So it seems like we missed the big part of that, because that was charity cycle.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because that was we should really start from this. So what's the deal?
So the America cycle was I did it for the Donald Walsh Live Life Foundation. So Donald Walsh, of course, was from Tralee Town, from here. He was 16 years old when he unfortunately died of cancer. But prior to his death, he spoke out against suicide, because suicide, he died in 2013, and suicide was prevalent in Ireland at that time. And at that time, there was still a stigma attached to it, as there kind of still is today, unfortunately. So, Donald had his own death, he was dying, unfortunately, and he knew that. And he didn't want to die. He wanted to continue living. So he spoke on national TV. He was on the Saturday Night Show with Brendan O'Connor. He had written newspaper articles, obviously spoken on the radio, and his message just went all around Ireland for young people to not commit suicide, and just to seek help, that when one door closes and when you think life is getting too tough, just talk, and then eventually another door will reopen again, because suicide just leaves behind a big massive mess and leaves behind so many heartbroken people. So I raised €7,950 for the foundation.
Great.
And my upcoming Africa trip is in aid of the same foundation as well.
Right. So that was the idea. Like, since I'm doing this, I'm gonna raise awareness and kind of you get in touch then with the foundation and said like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And my family know Finbar and Elma well already. Finbar used to manage a hotel back near where I live. So I didn't know them personally. I knew of them, and I knew of Donald Walsh, who I didn't know personally either. So yeah, I just got in touch with them and said, look, I have this idea of cycling across America, and I'd love to raise some funds for the foundation, because like I said, a lot of people, and I think a lot of people in both city and countryside, but a lot of people in the countryside do go through depression. Young and old. And then the other side of it, I was kind of thinking as well that I was 22 years old at the time, and I was kind of saying, well, maybe the cycle as well as wearing awareness, but maybe the cycle itself could inspire young people as well. Exactly.
That, when we put our mind to something,
like if something like that doesn't inspire you, have no pulse, man.
That we can do anything we want to do. So that led to the America cycle, and obviously the upcoming Africa trip.
Sure. And how the raising funds look like? Just people become aware, and they were just donating money because you're kind of like a poster man for that.
Yeah. So I mean, they have other fundraisers as well. So that it helped with them as well. I mean, the money I raised, it's helped a great deal as well. So
very good.
They have like special Donald Walsh rooms in hospices and hospitals, and in the
so the great cause. Listen, you already gave up your next trip. It's Africa. It's awesome. Let's talk about that. So 2 years passed, and you go like, well, I need more. Bigger challenge. What's walk us through the thought process and what's
so like I previously said, after the States, the plan was to go back to do college, and then go back to the States to do another cycle, just as kind of a reward to myself. Then so that plan went ahead. I went back and looked at college courses, picked one out. I got my college course. It was a PME Secondary School Teachers Masters in UCC. So I had everything arranged. I had my school organised, accommodation, and everything else was arranged as well. And then on the day that I was supposed to go down and have a meeting with the school, I got cold feet and just called them and said, look, I can't do this. I'm just not ready for this and stuff like that. So we had a good discussion, and thankfully they understood as well. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going back to college now. That was last August. So then I started saying, okay, well, if I'm not going back to college, I'm just going to just keep working and plan another trip. So then I pulled out a world map, and I was like, okay, I have the States done, could go do Europe or Australia, New Zealand or whatever. And then I just looked at Africa and something just appealed straight away. It just seems so crazy to do, but so cool at the same time. So when I just looked at Africa, I was like, I'm going to Africa. I was like, I don't care what I have to do, how many hurdles I have to jump over, who I have to annoy, who I have to upset, who I have to drive crazy. But I was like, I am going to Africa, and that was it. I'm very stubborn and headstrong, so once Africa came into my mind, I just couldn't get it out of there.
Is there more planning going to that trip?
Yeah, there's a bit more. A bit more planning, because it's 10 different countries I'm going through, and that's only 10 for now. If I feel that I want to visit other countries while I'm out there, then I absolutely will. Having done the America trip and realised that, and after doing the America trip, I realised I have to be more flexible. I cannot have a time strain. I just need to go away, and if it takes 3 months, it takes 3 months, or if it takes 12 months, it takes 12 months. There's just no time frame on it. So yeah, there's definitely more planning, because you're going through 10 different countries.
And they're not English speaking, I presume.
No. Now there is, because it was the British had colonized much of Africa. Some countries do speak English,
but
it depends where you go. Maybe just
So how are you planning to deal with, situations, whatever they may arise in the countries that are not English speaking?
Yeah, that's tricky and something I haven't figured out yet. I hope these situations don't arise, but if they do, then
you do what you do best. You take it just as it goes.
It depends how severe it is, but yeah, I'll just see what happens. And I really have no idea. I mean, if something happened, then I'll just have to just judge it on as it's happening, like I've always done, and just make a decision there and then. Because that's the good thing about these trips as well, that when you go away like this, you can call mom and dad to figure things out for you. You can get onto your school teacher, because obviously, like, going through school, you're spoon-fed all the information. So like when we get to college, some of us kind of, well, a lot of young people just don't know how to look after themselves properly, because everything's been done for them. Decisions have been made for them. So when you have to get out of and go away and do your own thing,
you 100%.
You have to think. You have to think on your feet. So I mean, it's going to be part of the challenge. Sometimes you might make the right decision, other times you mightn't make the right decision. Yeah. So you just judge it on merit and judge it as it's happening, and just hope to God that you make the right call.
Yeah. Listen, and how much convincing you had to, because I presume there are a lot of people who are concerned about your safety, and how you deal with that thing.
Yeah. So a lot of people aren't really happy with my choice of continent this time, and
I can imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, I fully understand it, because it is, it's going to be a lot more challenging than America. So I mean, obviously, like, I've driven my parents mad already. But I mean, I'd be in the same boat, if in the future, if I have kids, that if they wanted to go away and do something like this, I'd just be sick worried. But I mean, I've tried to convince my parents. What I'm trying to do now at the moment is just make as many contacts as possible. Yeah. Because I realized how much it helped in America, even just to have something as little as a phone number. Yes. That if anything did go wrong, that you could just call somebody who's around you in that country, we'll say. Yeah. And just say, look, I'm in a spot of bother. Is there any way you can help? I've been in touch with, like, the embassies. Yes. So they know I'm coming. So that just in case, like, for example, in Sudan, I have to cycle through the Sahara Desert. If anything happened to me there, and I have to call up the embassy and say, look, hey, guys, I need some help. But if I hadn't told them I was coming, then they're like, well, you never told us, like, what the hell what do you expect us to do? Yeah. At least now that they know that I'll be passing through, and that if anything happens, that at least they'll know that I'm there, so it might be easier to sort out. Sure. But apart from that, then it's just making contacts and just hoping that I've look on my side again and nothing bad happens. Yeah.
And is it set up the same, the bike? How do you, obviously not the same bike, but how do you?
Yeah. So I've bought a new bike for this trip, a Trek Tourer 920. Yeah. So this is a new bike by Trek, and
we all fans of Trek here on Tomás Outdoors podcast.
So yeah, Trekker, I mean, they're solid. They're good guys to go with. So this new bike, this Trek Tourer 920, basically nobody has an idea what it's supposed to do. It's a mix of, like, cyclocross, gravel, and road bike and mountain bike. So it's a road bike set up with mountain bike gearing. It's aluminium frame, not steel frame, and it's got mountain bike gearing. So there's going to be a lot of off-road sections.
So
the whole trip is 12,000 kilometers if I stick to the route that I've set out to do. And out of those 12,000 kilometers, 11,000 are paved, which means 1,000 are unpaved. Wow. So that's why this bike is ideal, because, okay, granted, I could have probably got a proper road bike and just used that and taken my chance on the unpaved parts. But then there's other countries, as I head further south, the roads are going to get very busy. Yeah. Like Namibia, for example, South Africa, Botswana. Yeah. I'm going to go off-road as much as I can through sandy paths, gravel paths, whatever I can get my hands on. Yeah. And that's why this bike is going to be crucial to that, because otherwise, if I had a road bike, I'd have to be stuck to the road. Yeah. And with African traffic. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm used to traffic with sleigh head and stuff, but this is different types of traffic.
Yeah. And the drivers are different as well.
Yeah. I don't think some rules of the road don't apply in some parts of Africa.
I remember when I was in Guinea-Bissau and we went out of the airport, and there was like a two types of cars. One type of cars was like a minivans, kind of without doors, without windows, completely crashed. And you would consider these cars to be on a like a dump yard, but they were just people were driving, like no doors, like a complete like. And then other than that, it was like a brand new BMWs and the Mercedes, like a shiny new, it was like a few of those and all the
complete contrast.
Yeah. But then Guinea-Bissau is a country with the biggest gap. I think it's the second in the world with the biggest gap between poor and rich. So that was so anyway. So how are you planning your route through Africa? Is there a website for? I presume there's no equivalent website for that.
No, but there's a company called the Tour d'Afrique. And they've kind of set up a route with like the last decade that any tour cyclists from Cairo to Cape Town use. Now, I mean, countries like Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, I mean, especially like Ethiopia, Kenya, lots of the roads aren't in good condition. So usually people who cycle tour, they all stick to the same route. You've got the main road out of Egypt, out of Cairo. Right. There's like two routes. You can go down the Red Sea or else down by the Nile. And everybody just uses those. There isn't like a whole variety of roads open access that you can use.
Sure.
So some of the countries you just have to bike on whichever road is there. They just don't have the same network as you would in Europe or America.
Yeah.
So anyone who's kind of done this trip usually sticks to the same route.
Right. So is that the route that was done before?
Yeah. Okay. It's getting more popular. I mean, at the moment, like the Chinese, it's easier than what it used to be, because at the moment the Chinese are out there building roads like crazy.
Oh,
they're stealing minerals of African countries.
That's very interesting geopolitical information that you're bringing here. So Chinese are. I heard somewhere that the Chinese is economically and they're very active in Africa.
It's like they've essentially just colonized Africa again, just like the Brits and the French,
but through trade,
German did.
Only
so
through
basically
trade.
They're like building roads and all these other things, and then they're taking their minerals.
Yeah,
but they're they're pumping money into it as well. So I've read conflicted reports. Like some people are kind of not happy with it, and other people are delighted because they're getting all these free infrastructure that their own countries can't build. Yeah, that the Chinese are building for them.
Yeah. And that's a Chinese doctrine that they're using trade as a tool of war. Yeah, which was different. Like traditionally Europeans, like a trade of war was just like a war, like a soldiers. While Chinese for thousands of years they used trade and economics also as a war, and this is exactly what's happening right now.
They're not going around harming people anyway. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So when you're starting?
I start officially on November 2nd.
Wow.
It's a Friday. So I leave Ireland the Friday before that, the October 26th. And I have a week in Cairo, primarily because the Muslim weekend is this Friday, Saturday, as opposed to our usual Saturday, Sunday. And the traffic in Cairo is supposed to be crazy. So anyone I've spoken to said that the best time to leave is either Friday, Saturday, as early as you can. So that's why I'm sticking around for the week, so that I can have a safe, swift passage out of the city and just get stuck into the heat then again after that. Right.
That's awesome. And you're flying to Cairo with the bike and with all the gear.
Yeah. So I have the bike is actually up in Dublin at the moment. I have to go up and collect it. But yeah, this time I'll be flying with the bike. And then gear wise, I think I'm fairly settled on that. I'm going to go with a very light setup, lighter than America. So I've scrapped the pannier bags. Oh. And I'm just going to use frame bags. I'm going to have a big saddle bag, a frame bag, a handlebar bag, and I'll try squeeze one more bag onto it.
Okay.
And I'll have to tent this time as well. So there's too many gaps and
sure places. Sure. Wow. And yeah, I still like you're saying, like, okay, I was going from person to person to get the water and so on. Now you're in a country there's no English speaking people potentially, and you go like, we're gonna go lighter this time.
yeah, probably a bit mad, but it's just I don't want to be too weighed down. It's funny because doing these trips, you just realize how little you actually need to get by. There's a trick behind it as well, you see.
Exactly.
So instead of being like weighed down with like 5 spare sets of clothes and 10 spare sets of cycling gear and laptops and big tents and things like that, I'm just going to carry a super light tent, one spare set of clothes,
Mm-hmm.
probably just like one spare set of cycling shorts, maybe even cutting down weight that I'm probably not going to bring runners. I might just bring a pair of like sandals or flip flops or something like that. Or if I do bring runners, I'm just going to get like a light pair.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be more electronics this time, because I definitely want to document this trip properly, because that's again one of the regrets with America, that I didn't do a proper like video documentary.
I thought you had a GoPro.
I did, but I didn't really use it. It was only towards the end, and when I did kind of shoot footage, it was only like footage from the bike, whereas I should have probably properly done kind of like more of a video blog than a writing blog.
Yeah.
So again, like, it's good doing these trips and, you know, making some mistakes and realizing these mistakes and not committing them again. So Africa, instead of like doing like big long Facebook blogs like I did in America, I'm just going to try to do videos. Instead of trying to like describe, I mean, like, I can write pretty well, but just instead of trying to like describe everything that I see and what's happening, why not just video?
One image, 1,000 words.
Instead of people use their imagination, why not just actually bring the imagination to them and let them see it with their own two eyes?
Absolutely.
Because like Africa is a wonderful continent. Like I can't wait to get out there and get going. And I just know it's going to be so hard to describe, because you're going to want to see it with your own two eyes. Because you can describe it as well as you can, but people still might be like, no, that can't be true. Like, he's only waffling there now. So I'm just going to be like, hey, look, there's a video. So this is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
So, so I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to get better at and get better at.
What's the name of the YouTube channel? How
just my own name, Tomás Mac t-Saoir. So Tomas, separate word, Mac, MAC, separate word, AN, and then t-Saoir, T-Saoir.
I was gonna ask you, because you're like for me it's impossible to pronounce. It's Irish name, right?
It is, yeah. But I don't know, maybe
Mac t-Saoir.
Mac t-Saoir. There we go.
There we go. Okay, I know.
So I'm going to do a video documentary, Wi-Fi permitting, of course, and that. I don't know. I don't.
You may have a problem with the phone coverage in Africa.
Yeah. That's another thing as well. You're going to need, like, it's going into the finer details of bringing a phone, but you're going to need 10 different SIMs because you're going through 10 different countries.
Yeah.
These are just the minor details now that the
just
bigger,
a serious planning going into that right now.
Yeah,
you're getting better at planning.
Yeah. This one I can't be as lazy about, unfortunately. But again, like, look, I'm not really looking at the route too much. It's planned.
Yeah.
But like going into great detail about the route, I don't really know a whole lot about it. Like, I know like the main areas I want to go to. Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, the Victoria Falls,
awesome.
Pyramids of Giza, they're outside Cairo. You know, they are things that I do want to do. But because you have to plan into so fine detail now, it even comes down to what clothing you can wear. You can't wear X different colours because you'll attract like mosquitoes and these different animals and things like that.
Oh God!
So I don't think you can't wear like bright colours, which is obviously you do want to wear when you're cycling so that you're visible on the road.
Yeah.
You've that, then you're going into like money. Like, Sudan don't have ATM, so I'll have to carry cash. Then you'll have to exchange money as you're passing through every country. So a lot of time is going to be spent on just getting myself ready for the next country.
Yeah, and I suppose you also read about everything about crossing the borders and all the fun related to that. I remember the trip through again to Guinea-Bissau, but it was not me, but people who went to Guinea-Bissau earlier, and I think they flown to Dakar and they tried to drive, and they say like when they were passing village, they were on each village they were stopped 3 times because there was like a military and then militia and then the locals, and each separate like a checkpoint they had to remove all the gear and check everything and put it back in and then bribe people and then again and again. So the whole road trip took like 2 days and they done it because it's supposed to be quicker. So you got discovered, I presume, because you're doing a lot of research now.
I'll have like military checkpoints and police checkpoints in Egypt and all the other countries, but I mean, once you have like your documents, like my passport, I have to print off like I don't know how many pictures of my own passport, not to hand them my document. Because if I give them my passport, then I can't leave the country. Yeah. So I'll have to do that, and then checkpoints just have to make sure you have all their documentations, all the shots I need, the different injections. You're right. Vaccinations and all that. Vaccinations. I'll be starting those soon, and Yeah, just hopefully there'll be no bike trouble. If I need like new gear, I might just...
Oh yeah, I think you need any spare parts, spare chain and like
yeah, I
tubes
probably will
and...
have to, yeah. There's bike shops in the major cities and stuff, but just because there's such big gaps between the cities, like each country is like one major city or maybe two major cities.
Yeah.
But like there could be hundreds of miles between them and then hundreds of miles before you get to the next city. So it's a lot to be kind of expecting the bike to hold up and stay in one piece. So I will have to bring some extra bike parts like tubes, tires.
Sure.
How I'm going to fit all this on a light setup, I have no idea yet, but
yeah, you'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out, exactly. Yeah. I might have to trim back and maybe bring only like a t-shirt and a pair of shorts or something like that, but I'll find space for them someplace.
Listen, how people can support you and support the cause and because you said you again raising money for the foundation. So tell us how people can support you.
So probably the best way is my Facebook probably or Twitter. What's my Twitter handle? Sayers Toms, I think. I think my Twitter handle is Sayers Toms, SEARSTOMS. There's a link pinned to my Twitter with the donation link.
We'll retweet that 25 times.
Yeah. So it's on I Donate Tomás's Africa Cycle. So I think it's like something like www.#IDonate #Tomás's Africa Cycle, all one word.
Yeah.
.com. Or else just my Facebook page. It's Tomás's Africa Cycle on that as well.
Yeah.
So if people just want to give
we put all those links in the show notes of the podcast so people know and can support you and so on.
Yeah. And then if just people even just want to like hit like on the Facebook page and just follow as I go along, because I'll be posting like the videos onto my Facebook and I'll be writing as well. So like they'll get the daily updates and stuff like that, and I'll be active on Twitter too as well.
Perfect. Tom, listen, you are amazing young man and you have a balls of steel, and that's I think it's really tough and really speaks about your character and it's just awesome. Listen, thanks very much for being our guest on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And hopefully, after you're back from Africa, maybe we're gonna do it again and just have an episode just dedicated to that. Tom, thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
And that concludes another episode of Tommy's Outdoors podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And now go and subscribe on iTunes or on Stitcher or on SoundCloud, obviously, if you haven't done so yet. Rate us, leave the review. This is great help for the podcast. And also follow us on Twitter @Outdoors Podcast or on Instagram @Tommy's Outdoors. And until the next time, bye.